Hello there, everybody, and a very warm welcome to you all. Good afternoon. Welcome to this CLPL session, Science Storytelling, focusing on the themes of Scotland's fossils, extinction, and dinosaurs. This is the first in a series of events made possible with thanks to the Enhancing Professional Learning in STEM Grants Fund from Education Scotland. So thank you very much to them for supporting our CLPL work and making this session possible today. Across the next 6 months, so that's between now and March 2023, Dynamic Earth are offering an online CLPL opportunity each month for practitioners to explore a different aspect of storytelling practice through a different STEM lens and topic each time. The topics we are covering include tropical rainforests, outer space, outdoor learning, the ocean, climate change, and the session that we are looking at today, dinosaurs, fossils, and extinction. As well as being on a different topic, each session will also focus on a different aspect of storytelling practice. So today, we are looking at effective delivery and presentation of stories. But in other sessions, we will be covering topics such as adapting written stories with games and activities, how to pitch content appropriately for learners, how to write stories for yourself, and how to create effective multisensory environments. Each session we deliver in the series will also include a section from a researcher or scientist to help evolve your knowledge, confidence, and skills in a variety of STEM topics. And I'm going to introduce to you our very special guest very soon, just a few moments' time. First of all, let me introduce myself. My name is Joe Purcell. I am a Learning and Engagement Officer here at Dynamic Earth. I am a trained primary school teacher, and I've worked in museum education and engagement since 2017. I'm also a trained actor as well, and I've got lots of experience in leading early years storytelling workshops. I've also promised you a very, very special guest today. So let me introduce her to you as well. I'd like to introduce to you Dr. Katie Strang. Katie is a geologist whose practice focuses on engagement in local communities, empowering people to tell the story of Scotland's rocks themselves. She is also the director of the Scottish Geology Festival. Katie is very passionate about equity in STEM and making sure that everybody, but especially children and young people, have the opportunity to see and understand how amazing Scottish geology and heritage is. Now, I will hand over to Katie very, very soon. I promise that I will. Before we do that, though, let's have a little look at what we are doing today. This session has been developed with early learning and childcare practitioners, teachers working with early and first level learners in primary sessions, and ASN practitioners in mind. This afternoon, we are going to be exploring through the principles of effective storytelling and playful pedagogies, how you can explore science or STEM through the themes of Scotland's geology, dinosaurs, and extinction. This session will share with you best practice in the field of science engagement, which is what we do here at Dynamic Earth, as well as drawing on principles and practice of realizing the ambition and the curriculum for excellence. Please do feel free to use the chat function at any point. If you have any questions, we will try our very best to answer them through the session. And as per the registration form, just a note to confirm that we are recording this session today to share with others who weren't able to attend. So we'll have a little look at the plan for this afternoon. In just a moment, I am going to hand you over to Katie, who's going to walk you through some Scottish geology and dinosaur fundamentals. Now, Katie is an absolute expert in this area. She's going to share some of her wisdom with you on why this topic is such a hit with learners. And if you have any questions for Katie as she is presenting, please do pop them in the chat as well. We are then going to have a look at some of the national best practice guidance for early years, realising the ambition, some playful pedagogy, and the principles and practices of effective science learning as outlined in the Curriculum for Excellence on this topic. We will then explore how effective storytelling delivery can help us deliver those rich, meaningful, and in-depth engagements that we all want to encourage in our practice. I will present a small segment of one of our dinosaur experiences here at Dynamic Earth and get you to reflect on the delivery style as I am doing that. We will then review the qualities of effective presenters more broadly altogether, and I will signpost you to some resources and stories that we think will help you take some of this back to your own setting with learners. So there is a lot to cover. I think we should crack on. I would like to now introduce to you and bring on up Dr. Katie Strang, who will take you through the next part of this session. Thank you, Katie.
Thank you very much, Joe. And hello, everyone. My name's Dr. Katie Strang, and as Joe says, I'm a geologist and paleontologist. And one of the things that I love is talking to people about rocks and fossils, and in particular, Scottish rocks and fossils, and just how incredibly awesome they are. So today I'm going to give you a brief introduction to some of the really cool stuff about Scotland's geology. I could literally talk for days, for hours about this, but I will try and do as good a summary as I can. So Scotland's geology spans for over 3 billion years of Earth's history, which is incredible. So the map on the right-hand side of your screen there is a geological map of Scotland, and this has been simplified. And it might look scary when you look at it here, but basically what I'm showing you this for is just all those different colours are representing all these different rock types. And over the 3 billion years of this Earth's history, Scotland has basically been through a lot of turmoil. So we have had everything from major tectonic upheaval, so that's when you get continents crashing together and mountains being built, but also volcanoes. But we've also had some really incredible life living throughout geological history as well. But because Scotland has been caught up time and time and again in these major geological events, it means we have a really incredible story of our geology. In Scotland, we're quite a small country, but we do have some of the oldest rocks in the world. So as a quick summary, if you go up to the northwest of Scotland, where the Northwest Highlands Geopark is, those rocks are all metamorphic, which means they have basically been cooked and recrystallised, and those are over 3 billion years old, which is just incredible. But where I am just now in Edinburgh, which is in the Central Belt, our rocks there are actually a lot younger, and they're only about, I say only, but only about 330 million years old. But what I'm going to do is just look at some of the things that Scottish geology has done and ways that we can kind of use those stories to get kids inspired and getting them going out and looking at rocks and thinking about these events. So when you think about Scotland's history, one of the most famous things about Scotland's geology is a place called Sicker Point, which is this image on the bottom right of your screen. Now, Sicker Point was discovered by a guy called James Hutton, and that was in the 18th century. And what you have here is you have a load of rocks that are sitting vertically, which are then overlain by horizontal rocks. And that might not seem like a very significant thing if you're not a geologist, but when you start looking into these stories, it's actually how we started to understand geological time. So before James Hutton, we basically thought that the Earth was like 6,000 years old. But James Hutton looked at these processes and the way these rocks were sitting, and basically realised that these processes take thousands, if not millions and millions of years. And on the top of the image, top image there, you have a very deformed metamorphic rock. So these are those rocks, I was saying, up in the Northwest Highlands, which basically have been folded and cooked, and they have all these amazing structures and folds in them. And on to my next slide. So when we're looking at these different rocks, what is it that makes them different? And it's due to the different processes that led to their formation, basically. So throughout those 3 billion years, we have seen a huge array of different environments here in Scotland. And the map that you can see on the bottom there is what is called a reconstruction, or a paleogeographic reconstruction. And that basically means it's where the continental masses of the Earth were at different geological times. So the bit I'm going to talk to you about just now is about a period called the Carboniferous. And the Carboniferous dates to about 360 to about 300 million years ago. And it's most famous because that is where most of our coal deposits come from on Earth. So geology is not just important because of these rocks that we have, they're also very important for economic reasons. So our industrial revolution here in Scotland was ultimately powered by the coal that we mined. And that coal was there because of these ancient environments. So there's a reconstruction here on the top right, which is all these ancient coal swamps. And it can be very, very hard to imagine these past environments, but kids are brilliant at thinking about these things. So back when Scotland was in the equator during the Carboniferous, we were at very low latitudes. And we know from modern analogues that if you're at low latitudes at the equator, you generally have quite a hot, tropical and humid climate. And because of those conditions in the climate, it meant that we were able to form all these coal swamps and forests. So we had these absolutely giant trees, which were called lycopsids, which grew to 50 or 60 meters in height. And what's really cool about them is that they had like a soft tissue, which wasn't like a bark, it was more like a cork. And that meant they could grow like super, super fast. And then when they reproduced, they actually died. And that meant that you had a big accumulation of peat and carbon building up during that time. And then over millions of years, that got buried. And once it was buried, that's what became the coal that we went and we exploited throughout the UK. So 9 out of 10 of the UK's most populated areas are actually built on top of coal fields. And they're amazing places to go out and to try and discover more about the geology. So they weren't just important for the industrial reasons like coal, there was also other rocks like limestone, which are very important. Now, limestone is a rock that usually contains lots and lots of fossils. So limestone's normally composed of minerals called calcium carbonate, and generally is deposited in marine settings. So one of the great things about geology is that we can look at modern environments and use those to give us information about what was going on in the past. So today we can look at places like the Great Barrier Reef off the coast of Australia and look at those corals that are thriving and what they're doing and how it's affecting the ocean and climate change and how they're being impacted by that climate change. But the rocks from the Carboniferous, these limestones, are also fossilized coral reefs. So throughout Earth's history, we have seen changing climates. And now, because there is a lot of focus, obviously, on climate change and going forward, how we would manage to mitigate that, we can actually look at these rocks and understand what was going on over 300 million years ago to help us today. And one of the things is that obviously the coal that we extracted and we burned, that is one of the major contributions to climate change. So it does have quite a negative connotation when people think about it. But one of the brilliant things is that scientists, researchers, we can go and we can look at these fossils that were living during the Carboniferous and look how they actually responded to climate change and use that information going forward. And one of the other great things about geology and paleontology, I find, is it's not just about the science. So you'll notice these reconstructions that are on the slide here. Reconstructions are so, so important when we're looking at fossils, and we need people that have this artistic ability. So even if someone might not be that interested in the science, we need people that are good at art. And sort of typically, most people that are interested in geology and paleontology usually do have quite a good appreciation, because when you're out looking at things, you're looking and you're interpreting what you're seeing. And it's a really, really great way to get kids to start thinking about these things and paying attention to the environment around them. And we have got some very, very famous fossil sites in Scotland. So the fossil heritage of Scotland spans over 1 billion years. So it's about 1,200 million years in total. So we have some of the very early evidence of life on Earth, but we also have more recent stuff like dinosaurs, and dinosaurs are always what get kids very excited. But before I go on to dinosaurs in Scotland, just a wee summary of some of the awesome stuff we have found. So talking about the Carboniferous, during that time was basically when animals started to move from the sea and onto land. And one of the things that drove that kind of evolution was a mass extinction event. So the Devonian period, which occurred about 400 million years ago before the Carboniferous period started, there was a huge mass extinction event. And that basically wiped out about 95% of life in the oceans. And when you get to the Carboniferous, when Scotland is at these low latitudes near the equator, we see animals start to evolve, and they're starting to move from these marine and brackish lagoon environments and actually going to walk on land. And these animals are called tetrapods, and they're basically very, very early amphibians. And in a little place called Bournemouth, which is where I grew up, it's in the Scottish borders, the rocks there are of a very specific age, and they have found very early evidence of tetrapods there. And we basically can use this evidence to look at evolution and evolution of humans, because ultimately we all evolved from these very, very early tetrapods. But we do have other things like preserved terrestrial ecosystems. So there's a site in Aberdeenshire called the Rhynie Chart, which exceptionally preserves cellular detail of very early plants from the Devonian, which is incredible. And we also have early mammal remains as well. And a very, very famous fossil shark called the Bear's Den shark, which is what that picture is of on the bottom. Now, the Bear's Den shark is awesome. The Bear's Den shark actually has its own website, so you can go and read all about what the Bear's Den shark has been up to. But the actual fossil itself is in the Hunterian Museum. And the reason I think this is such a great fossil is that a lot of the time sharks, because they're made of soft tissue like cartilage, they don't actually preserve. And this is on display in the Hunterian, but you can go online and read about it there and look at the fossil in detail with high resolution images and get kids to think about how this animal was actually living. What did it look like when it was alive? Also, you actually have preserved stomach contents in the stomach of the Bear's Den shark, so we could tell what it was eating for its last meal. And all these things are things that get kids really excited and engaged, these stories. And particularly when you're talking about things like sharks, they're just really, really cool. But obviously, I do know that most people do really, really love dinosaurs. And I've got an image here, which is a painting by Dr. Elsa Pansaroli, who is a paleontologist who works in Oxford. And she does a lot of research on the Isle of Skye, but also other areas in the west of Scotland. And while she typically focuses on mammals, they did recently find a very, very awesome discovery, which was part of the leg bone of a Stegosaurus dinosaur. Now, Stegosaurus is probably my absolute favourite dinosaur, but it is a very, very hard one to pick. Tends to sort of change between Stegosaurus and Allosaurus. But Stegosaurus, this one here, would have been living around the Isle of Egg and Skye back in the Jurassic period. And this painting by Elsa is another example of how you can use this paleo art in reconstructions of these animals to actually engage with people and get kids thinking about what they look like. If we go back to the shark for a wee moment, you'll notice that it has this sort of weird appendage on the top of its head. And one of the things that we can do, as I mentioned, is we can look at modern animals and the biodiversity that we have around us today and look at how these animals are living and use that to try and work out what was going on in the past. But this Bear's Den shark, we think that this appendage was probably for sort of defense things to make it look a bit scary, but I guess we will never know. But that is another really great thing to do, is to get kids start thinking about the morphology, what an animal looks like or what a fossil looks like, and what that will tell us about our sort of evolution and things. But another reason that I absolutely love geology is that geology is everywhere. I would say it is probably one of the most accessible sciences. Now, I grew up in this wee place in the Scottish borders, like I was saying, and when I was growing up, I didn't really know that you could study geology at university or at school or anything. So I think it is really important to have that representation. So I didn't know straight away when I left school what I wanted to do. I sort of did a few different things before I went back to uni and actually did geology. Now, I put a couple of maps here just to summarise what I was saying about this, the coal fields and about industry. So geology, it covers so many different things. And a lot of people, when I start talking about geology, are like, Katie, they're rocks. And whilst geology is a lot of rocks, there's a lot of really, really amazing things that we can learn from those rocks. And wherever you go, you will see geology of some kind. So whether that is in buildings, if you live in a city, you're not able to get out to a beach. Walking around the city, you see different building stones that will tell you a lot about the local geology. But also it might seem a bit random, graveyards. And we actually use graveyards quite a lot when teaching undergraduates about different rock types. It's a brilliant place to go and see a lot of different rock types in one place. And then when looking at these sort of industrial stories that we have about our geology, it's about how we teach kids about the past and our industrial past and our heritage, but how we can then use those rocks and the information we got from those rocks to help us in the future. So for example, old coal mines and other old disused mines round about Scotland and in England, a lot of research has been undertaken to look at how we can use those for geothermal energy. So when you go deep underground, the earth tends to be hotter down there. You've got a load of rock covering it, and we can actually use or extract that heat to help us heat our homes. And because we did basically build our populations around these coal fields, it means that we're actually in the perfect place to utilise those. And going forward, we need people who know about geology to help us with the future and with climate change. And then you have your very obvious places where you can go and you can look at rocks. For example, the beach. Even if you go to a sandy beach, you can still look around, find pebbles that will tell you a bit about the environment. And I think instinctively, most people do know what a pebble is. And it's one of those things that quite often I speak to people, I always carry rocks in my pocket. And I found out that a lot of people, including a lot of kids, actually do exactly the same. And it's always really interesting to find out what it is that engaged that person and made them actually pick up that rock. And this is my final slide to do a little summary about the best ways that you can engage people. And as I say, because the geology is such a huge, huge topic, there is so many different things that I could cover here. But when you're looking at fossils and teaching people, it is about these stories. So it's the year of stories this year, and during the Scottish Geology Festival, we try to use our events to try and teach people about these stories, that it's not just about a rock, it's what these things can tell you about these past environments. One of the best ways to engage kids, I found, one of the things that I research is fossilised poo. And when you show kids fossilised poo, they absolutely love it. And what you can do with that is you can actually start teaching kids about ecosystems and about sort of food hierarchy, what was eating what, and you know, the shapes of these poos can tell us a lot about that animal and what it was made by as well. But there's other things like crinoids. So if you have ever been around about the central belt of Scotland or around Northumberland where you have other carboniferous rocks, these crinoids have been known for thousands of years. Obviously they didn't know they were fossils when they first found them, but they have been in mythology a lot. So you might have heard them being called St. Cuthbert's beads, for example. So throughout history, humans, we have always had this really strong connection with our geology and with fossils. And on the bottom here, where you can see this fossilized plant material, these are actually some of the plants that were living during the Carboniferous that went on to form these coal deposits. And by looking at the different plants that were living then and living now, we can use this information to help us when we're looking at ways to reduce carbon in the atmosphere. And then you have fossils that look just really, really cool and like what they're supposed to be. So in the bottom here, we have a fossilized fish, but it's not just a fossilized fish. This poor fish, during the Carboniferous, some point it died. It was buried very quickly and preserved. And then at some point after that, there was a huge, big, violent volcano which erupted, and that spewed out loads of lava, which covered this and then baked that fossil fish and turned it white, which is really cool. And there is so much you can say just about one rock or one fossil. Like, honestly, you could give me one rock and I would just spend hours talking about that one rock. So yeah, I guess the point I'm trying to make by saying this to you is that it's not just about that physical object that you're showing them. It's about what that can tell us looking back in Earth's history, but also going forward. So a lot of people get the impression, what is the point in studying geology or paleontology and fossils? Because, you know, if it happened millions of years ago, why is it relevant? And the reason it's relevant is that we truly need to understand these things to help us going forward. And kids are very, very good at being aware of current situations. And most kids you speak to will be very aware of the climate change situation we face. So it's a really, really great way to get them starting thinking about these different things. And it's just a really, really fun thing to do. I mean, who doesn't like going to a beach and looking at rocks or looking for fossils? It's just a really accessible way to be able to teach kids. So I think I will finish up there and pass you back over to Joe.
Well, thank you so much, Katie. I honestly wish we had hours for you to talk about everything that you can talk about, because it's just brilliant. But I'm afraid we don't. I've just managed to change the camera. We were having a slight issue with that before, and I do apologize for any audio issues you might have encountered during that. Hopefully that has all been fixed now. And we will move on to the next section of our session. So just bear with me 2 more seconds, if you don't mind, as I grab the next slide. This is always the issue as we do things over Teams. Some things sometimes don't go to plan, but thank you so much for bearing with us. And I hope you're finding it a useful session so far. Here we are. We will move on to our next section of the session. So I do hope you agree that that was an excellent jumping off point for the rest of this session. Thank you again, Katie, for all of your insight there. What we are going to do now in the next chunk of time together is we're going to move on to a little bit of theory before we move on to the practice. So we're going to have start off by looking at some of the experiences and outcomes and principles and practice that you can deliver through this theme. So making sure that everything is aligned with the curriculum for excellence is obviously a key consideration for all of us in our practice. So to help with that, we've pulled out some of the key experiences and outcomes that we feel science storytelling can help us deliver on this topic. So, first of all, we can use it to help deliver topical science with a Scotland focus. For example, we can link to fossil finds in Skye or research happening in Scotland right now. But also, we love things being interdisciplinary, so we want to make sure that we are helping develop literacy skills around listening and talking as part of this too. And just to take that interdisciplinary lens to a whole new level, we can cover social subject outcomes as well. Now, all of these outcomes are at early level. But if you have got learners moving into first, you can also touch on ideas of, I can distinguish between living and non-living things, or I can sort living things into groups and I can explain my decisions. Now, as well as being curriculum linked, we also love a bit of learning for sustainability. Now, we wanted to highlight some of the intrinsic links in this topic to some of the themes of learning for sustainability. Some of the really obvious ones are things like heritage and thinking about things on a variety of different scales, where we find fossils locally, where we find fossils globally. But The big one for us when we cover dinosaurs here as a theme at Dynamic Earth is thinking about the theme of extinction, which has got loads of relevance to us all today. So, something to consider when we are thinking about this topic is how to use the theme of dinosaurs to think about extinctions today. It can help bring front and center some of the big issues of today related to sustainability. What causes extinction? What drives extinction? What is extinction? What animals are at risk of extinction today? There are lots of links we can make. Now, the other key national priority that we wanted to consider with you today is the Realising the Ambition National Practice Guidance for Early Years in Scotland. We are incredibly supportive of child-centred, developmentally appropriate practice. And storytelling is a really great way to help deliver successful outcomes for young persons' development, and the Scottish STEM strategy as well, as we continue our journey to become a STEM nation. So we've been through the National Practice Guidance, and we have highlighted a series of key things that we think storytelling practice, which we are covering throughout this series as a whole, helps deliver, including finding new words to express thoughts and feelings, helping children in early years of childhood develop their communication skills, learning how to respond to voice, words, and facial expressions, balancing times for different kinds of activities, for example, play versus wind down and chill time, which is all very important. Providing storytelling settings that help children feel relaxed, safe, happy, content, and cozy, which all aid child development. Develop movement and coordination skills with songs, actions, gestures. Physical development and coordination is enhanced through singing, clapping, and dancing together. Developing scientific inquiry skills by making predictions and offering potential explanations. During your storytelling sessions, you can pose questions which encourage inquiry. I wonder why you thought that. What do you think is going to happen next? Would you like that to happen to you? That sort of thing. And you can develop creativity by allowing learners the opportunity to suggest ideas in creative contexts. Now, the guidance outlined in Realising the Ambition also helps us think about the value of storytelling in the context of literacy across the curriculum. There is a whole section in it about how we can all, as practitioners, support young children develop their literacy skills, which you can see summarised on the screen right now. Throughout the course of what we're about to do next, you will see some of this in action. Now, I know the screen you're currently looking at is quite text heavy. I'll give you a little moment to just have a look at it. Now, hopefully and helpfully, actually, the guidance is broken down into babies, which you just saw on the previous screen, very young children, toddlers, and children who are at the boundary or the transition between nursery and primary school. We are going to revisit this a little bit later on in the session. So, we've had some lovely context. We've had some great scene setting from Katie. We have looked at some of the national priorities and the best practice guidance. So what we are going to look at now is the one particular focus area of practice we are studying today: your role as a storyteller and a presenter. Now, in order to do this, I am going to share with you 15 or 20 minutes of our dinosaur storytelling session that we do here at Dynamic Earth. Now, what I would like you to do as I do this storytelling session for you, I'd like you to reflect on what the qualities of effective presentation and delivery are. So as I am going through this story, please feel free to write down your thoughts and your suggestions in the chat, and we will discuss afterwards. For now, though, I will introduce this dinosaur storytelling session. Now, of course, this is a session aimed at early years, young children. So put yourself in their shoes, sit comfortably cross-legged on the floor. You don't actually have to do that. And we will do our dinosaur storytelling session. So, hello everybody. Welcome to this dinosaur storytelling session. My name is Joe, and we today are going to have a story all about some dinosaurs. Have you got a favorite dinosaur? Oh, that's fantastic. They're all amazing dinosaurs. Well, we are going to meet some dinosaurs today. But in order to meet those dinosaurs, we are going to need to go back in time. So, everybody, get in your time machines for me. And let's go back in time. We're going back. We're going back. We're going back. We've gone past the early 1980s. All the clothes are back in fashion. We are going way, way back, way, way back, way, way back. Thousands of years, millions of years. We found our way back to a very strange land. A land where there aren't any cars and there aren't any planes. There aren't even any people. It's a land filled with volcanoes and filled with dinosaurs. Now, I think we should probably meet some of the dinosaurs that are in our story today, but I am going to need your help to do that. So, you can help me meet our very first dinosaur. Our very first dinosaur is called Vicky. Now, Vicky's a very fast dinosaur. And Vicky is a really very good at smelling. She's got a great sense of smell. She's covered in feathers as well. So if you would like to meet Vicky, why don't you help me out by everyone saying, "Hello, Vicky," after 3. Do you think you can do that? Okay, brilliant. After 3, we'll say, "Hello, Vicky." 1, 2, 3. Hello, Vicky. Hello. I'm Vicky. Vicky. Vicky's a strange dinosaur. She's got feathers. She's fast. She can smell very well. Do you know what type of dinosaur Vicky is? Vicky is a velociraptor. Vicky the velociraptor. But she's not the only dinosaur in our story. So let's meet another one. Our next dinosaur, I'm going to need your help with again. She's really big and she's got huge spikes on her back. And she's got a tail that's a bit like a big club. If she was in your classroom, one nose would touch the wall and her tail would be out the door. But she's a little bit shy. So I'm going to need your help. She's called Annie. Can you say "Hello, Annie" after 3 for me? Fantastic. Okay, here we go. After 3. 1, 2, 3. Hello, Annie. Oh, hello. I'm Annie. This is Annie. She's got those big spikes on her back. She's got that big tail that's like a club. Do you know what type of dinosaur Annie is? Annie is an ankylosaurus. Annie the ankylosaurus. We've got another dinosaur to meet. So I'm going to need your help again. This dinosaur is called Terry. And can you say "Hello, Terry" for me after 3 to help get him over? Thank you. After 3, here we go. 1, 2, 3. Hello, Terry. Can you hear that? I can hear strange noises. Can't see any dinosaur. We're going to need to try it again. Can you say "Hello, Terry" for me a little bit louder this time after 3? Okay, 1, 2, 3. Hello, Terry! I can hear that noise again, but I still can't see any dinosaurs. We're going to need to try one more time. Can you all say hello, Terry, as loudly as you can for me after 3? Teachers, you might need to put your fingers in your ears because I think it's going to be noisy. Okay, after 3, 1, 2, 3. Hello, Terry! Hello, I'm Terry. This is Terry. I wonder if you know what type of dinosaur Terry is. He's got 3 horns on his face. 1, 2, 3. He's got a big frill around his neck. And just like Annie, if he was in your classroom, one nose would touch the wall and his tail would be out the door. Do you know what type of dinosaur Terry is? Terry is a triceratops. Terry, the triceratops. Hello, I'm Terry. You interrupted me while I was eating. I'm really hungry. That must have been what the noise was. That was Terry chewing away. Oh, okay. We've solved the mystery. We've got Terry, we've got Annie, and we've got Vicky. Now, one day, Vicky came over to her dinosaur pals and she said, "Guess what, Annie? Guess what, Terry? I've just seen the coolest thing of all time. Follow me!" And she raced off. Annie said, "Oh, I'm quite happy here, actually. I don't really want to go anywhere else." Terry said, "Well, I am in the middle of eating, but it doesn't look like there's much food left, so maybe I'll go." And he plodded off after Vicky. Annie said, "Oh, well, don't leave me alone." And she wandered off after her friends as well. Now, Annie and Terry followed Vicky, who led them somewhere very strange. She led them to a cave. The cave was dark, and the cave was damp, and the cave was dingy, and the cave looked a little bit dangerous. But Vicky said, "Follow me, guys, this is the coolest thing ever. Come and check out my cave." And she raced in. Terry said, "Well, I can't smell any food, but I guess I'll go in." And he plodged after Vicky. Annie said, "Oh, I don't really like the look of this cave, but I don't want to be left alone either. Wait for me." She plodded in too. The 3 friends went into the darkness of the cave. It was very still in there. But after a little while, they heard a rumbling noise. Now, I wonder if you can help me out with their rumbling noise. You could either get your hands and put them on your chest and go rumble, 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 rumble. Or you can get your hands and you can put them on your lap and go rumble, 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 rumble. Or you can get your feet and you can start to stamp your feet and go rumble, 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 rumble. Can you make a nice big rumbling sound for me? Fantastic. Here we go. After 3. 1, 2, 3. Rumble, 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 rumble. That was brilliant. I wonder what that rumbling noise was. It didn't sound very good. It sounded a bit scary. The 3 friends raced back to the mouth of the cave and they saw a huge hot river of lava. What do you think had happened? The volcano had erupted. Oh my goodness me. I wouldn't want to be anywhere near an erupting volcano. Would you? What do you think it would be like? I think you're right. Pretty scary and pretty hot. Well, Annie said, "Oh my goodness, it's so hot and I can't see any of our dinosaur friends. They must have run away when the volcano started erupting." Terry said, "I can't see any food either. I think it's been all burned up. And I'm really hungry. I might not have mentioned that before." Vicky said, "Don't worry, guys. I can smell our dinosaur friends." Vicky's got a really good sense of smell. She said, Follow me and I'll find them." And off she raced. Terry said, "Well, if there's no food, I suppose I'd better go. I am very hungry, by the way." and off he plod. Annie said, "Oh, please don't leave me alone with this volcano erupting," and she raced after her friends too. The erupting volcano soon gave way to hot, open desert. That's where that's where Vicky led her friends. The desert was hot and the desert was dry. But Vicky, with her great sense of smell, was saying, "I can definitely smell our friends, follow me. All we need to do is we need to go up these sand dunes and then we need to go down the sand dunes." That sounds like exhausting work to me, but maybe we can all do it together. Can you all climb up the sand dunes with me? And then we'll slide down them. Get your hands ready. And we will go up the sand dunes and we'll go down the sand dunes. Very good. Let's try it again. We're going to go up the sand dunes and we're going to go down the sand dunes. And once more, we're going to go up the sand dunes and we're going to go down the sand dunes. That was brilliant. Well, the three friends were doing this for quite a long time, until eventually Vicky said, "Whoa, well, I can still smell our dinosaur friends, but I can smell something else. It smells rotten and eggy and pooey and meaty, and I've never smelled anything worse in my life." Terry said, "I can't smell that. I can't even smell any food. By the way, I'm really hungry." Annie said, "I can't smell it either, but I don't like the sound of it. Maybe we should just keep going." So the three friends carried on, going up the sand dunes and going down the sand dunes. After a little while, Annie said, "Oh, I can smell that horrible smell too. It smells rotten and eggy and pooey and meaty, and it's the worst smell I've ever smelled." Vicky said, "I'm glad it's not just me. It's horrible, isn't it? But I don't know what it is." What do you think it could be? We'll find out very soon, I think. Terry said, "I still can't smell anything, even food. And I have mentioned a few times, I think, but I am hungry." The three friends kept on going up the sand dunes and down the sand dunes, until eventually they reached the edge of the desert. At the edge of the desert, Terry said, "Whoa, I can smell that horrible smell too. It smells rotten and pooey and eggy and meaty, and that is one of the worst smells I've ever smelled. But I can also smell food." He raced off because they had reached the edge of the desert and they had found themselves next to some lush plants. Terry ran off to have a good chew. Vicky said, "Well, I'm glad we're at the edge of the desert now, but I still don't know what that smell was, and I can still smell it." Suddenly, there was a rustling in the leaves behind them. It sounded like something huge, something monstrous, and something scary. What do you think it might be? Bursting through the leaves, Annie and Vicky saw a monstrous Tyrannosaurus Rex. It took one look at Vicky, the smaller of the two dinosaurs, and said, "You look like a tasty meal. I'm going to eat you." And it opened its huge jaws really wide, showing its menacing sharp teeth. And it went to clash its teeth down on Vicky. But Vicky was fast. She jumped out the way. She said, "Ha ha ha ha, you can't catch me." That made the T-Rex annoyed. The T-Rex said, "You're a really irritating little dinosaur. I'm definitely going to eat you now." And it opened up its huge jaws. Can you help me out? Can you open your huge jaws for me? Very good. And we're going to snap them down on Vicky. Snap. But Vicky jumped out the way again. "Ha ha ha ha, you're a stinky T-Rex." That made the T-Rex really annoyed. It lifted up its huge foot with massive claws and it pinned Vicky to the ground. It opened its huge jaws one more time and said, "You're definitely not getting away from me now." Can you open those huge jaws for me? And get ready to clash them down. Now, Annie saw that her friend was in danger And she said, "No, that's my friend." And she ran towards the T-Rex. And as those huge jaws snapped down, instead of snapping down on Vicky, they snapped down on Annie. But you might remember, Annie's back is covered in spikes. So all that happened was the T-Rex's teeth shattered. "Ah!" said the T-Rex. "That really hurt." But Annie wasn't done. She swung her huge tail, which was like a big club, and she hit the T-Rex in the tummy. "Ugh!" said the T-Rex. "You hurt my teeth and you hurt my tummy. That's not fair." Now, all this time, Terry had been happily munching away on leaves, but he heard the commotion. He turned around and he saw that his friends were having a fight. So he lowered his head with his 3 big horns and he said, "Charge!" And he ran towards the T-Rex and he pronged the T-Rex right on the bum. "Ugh!" said the T-Rex. "You've hurt my teeth, you've hurt my tummy, and now you've hurt my bum. It's not fair." And he stomped away. "Hooray!" said the 3 friends. "We managed to get rid of the smelly T-Rex." Then Vicky said, "Hold on a sec. I can smell our dinosaur friends." They looked towards where Terry had been munching the leaves. And through the hole that he had munched, they could see a brand new land. A land where all of their dinosaur friends were. A land with loads of food and loads of water and no stinky T-Rexes. "Wowie!" said Vicky. "That looks great. Follow me!" And she raced off through the hole. Annie said, "Oh, Vicky, we can't get through that hole. It's too small for us." And using her big spiked back and her big club tail, she made the hole even bigger and stomped through. Terry said, "Well, I mean, I quite like it here because there's loads of really nice food, but the food looks pretty good through there as well, and I am very hungry." So he stomped on through that hole as well. And the 3 friends found themselves in this new land where they lived happily ever after. So thank you so much for indulging me in that dinosaur storytelling. I hope you enjoyed it. It's obviously a bit of a strange thing for me to do it not in front of an early years audience. As you are in front of an early years audience, you obviously get a lot of reactions from them as to how things are going and how the story is panning out. So there's a few different things that we thought when we were developing this story are important when we do storytelling for early years. So the things that I pulled out from that, and I hope you agree with me, is that I use different voices a lot. I use a different variation of pitch and tone to try and keep children entertained. And if you are with your early years audience and they are finding something funny, I think it's a good thing to kind of latch on to that and to keep repeating it. For example, whenever I do this storytelling, children often find that Terry being very hungry is a good thing that makes them laugh. So I often go back to that. Just skip into a few things that you have all written. Thank you so much for writing. Ali has said using varied tones, speeds and volumes, telling the story which helps engage the listener. Thank you so much, Ali. Ashley said using questioning to promote a sense of inquiry, describing the sensory experiences of the dinosaurs to immerse the children in the experiences of the dinosaurs. Thank you for appreciating that we were trying to do that. Lorna said using active participation engages attention. It absolutely does. We find that all the time. It's really good to make sure that you are not just, if you've got a storybook, you're not just sticking rigidly to the story. Keep engaging with your children. Katie says that Katie's children watched it with you and enjoyed joining in with the gestures. Hello to Katie's children. And saying bum to little ones does always get a laugh. You are absolutely right, Lorna. So thank you so much for your observations. A few other things that we pulled out as well. Facial expressions. I mean, it's fun to do funny faces, I think. So I try and do them as much as I can. Keeping up your eye contact as well. Like I said, it's not good to just kind of stick rigidly to that storybook and keep your nose in that book. Really open it up. And it just makes everything so much better. Having enthusiasm for the topic is always great, even if you don't find that you have a huge amount of enthusiasm for dinosaurs. If you've got energy, if you've got dynamism in your body and in your voice, that confidence is going to translate. And also, I think a really big thing is to know that in front of an early years audience, you are not making a fool of yourself. It's a bit of a strange thing for me to have done this in a room with a camera with just Katie as my audience, but you aren't making a fool of yourself in front of your early years audience. We've mentioned a few of these things as well: to listen, to engage with, to interact with your audience, be flexible to their needs as well. Make sure you're tuned into how they are enjoying this story. It's good to check in with your audience. Don't stick rigidly to that text. Keep the pacing up. Make sure things aren't too slow, but also aren't too fast at the same time. And as we have mentioned as well, to encourage curiosity, to encourage empathy. For example, in that story, I was saying stuff like, oh my goodness, the volcano has erupted. Do you think they're going to be okay? Would you want to be near an erupting volcano? What do you think it would be like? And what do you think that noise might be? What could be making that smell? What could be rustling in the leaves? So I hope you enjoyed that story. We are going to move on to the next part of the session now, which is just me kind of pointing out that I hope that you picked up on the qualities of being an effective presenter and the things that I was doing just then. But we identified earlier the things that help us deliver some of the things identified in the National Best Practice Guidance. So I promised we would go back to this slide, and actually I've highlighted a few things here that I think we tick when we are delivering our storytelling session. I am aware this is quite a wordy slide, so I will leave you with it for just a moment to have a little look through. And I'm now going to move on to something that in other sessions in the series we are going to touch on as well. Different dimensions of storytelling practice. So this is coming up in future CLPL sessions with Dynamic Earth. We will be writing our own, teaching you or telling you how to write your own story, to come up with activities to accompany stories. But we couldn't run this session today without highlighting a few recommended resources that you may want to look into and use in your own practice. Now, one of those things is a brand new book called Dougie the Dinosaur. And we've got a copy of it right here. So you can see it on the screen, but there is Dougie the Dinosaur as well. So Dougie the Dinosaur is written by Anne and Steve Bruschetti. Steve is based at the University of Edinburgh, and he is a dinosaur expert. He was even involved in giving scientific advice on the new Jurassic World movie. Now, together with his wife Anne, they have written this new book, and we really like it here at Dynamic Earth. And we like it because it does more than just be a dinosaur encyclopedia. It tries to give a narrative and a bit of a storytelling feel. But you don't, if you are looking for an encyclopedia style book, then we do recommend this lovely illustrated encyclopedia called Dinosaurs and Other Prehistoric Creatures, which is by Matt Sewell. We really like it. It's kind of interesting. It's very interesting. The facts are all great. The illustrations are kind of quirky and really lovely, and that's why I particularly like it. So that is Dinosaurs and Other Prehistoric Creatures by Matt Sewell, if you're looking for some book resources. Feels a bit like I'm doing telemarketing here. I promise that I'm not. We do have other great stuff to show you, and we're not trying to sell you things. As well as storytelling and using books, you may want to also use handling specimens or toys to help introduce the themes to learners. That is something that we do as our storytelling session here at Dynamic Earth. I do the story and then we have object handling. So it's a really lovely way to illustrate some of the things that you've been talking about in your story. If you can then say, well, we have got this right here. We found out about a velociraptor, and here is a model velociraptor claw. And you can see the hooked claw there. Or here is a model velociraptor skull. And we talked about how Vicky had a great sense of smell. Look how big her nostrils were. But actually, she wasn't a very big dinosaur. Really lovely way to just interact and engage with the dinosaurs you've been talking about. We also show them these. We have fossilized Triceratops teeth. So real fossils right here. That is a really cool thing to pass around the circle that really gets children engaged and enthused. They're holding real fossils that are millions of years old. Something that Katie touched on as well is this thing right here, which is a coprolite. So it's a fossilized poo. And it's a really cool thing to pass around the circle, make sure everyone gets a good hold of it, make sure everyone has a sniff of it. And then you can explain to them, well, actually, you've just been holding dinosaur poo. That's a very cool thing too. We, of course, illustrate our story with these lovely plushies too. So there's our Ankylosaurus. There is our Velociraptor. And good old Terry the Triceratops as well. Lovely things. Children like hugging them, holding them. They like being able to interact and be tactile with these soft plushies. So that's a lovely thing that enhances our storytelling too. But there's lots of other things you can do. You could make plasticine fossils or clay fossils. It's quite easy to get silicone molds that you can make fossils out of very easily with an early years audience. You could make a dig box, just fill a box with sand and put some fossils in it and get some brushes so they're being like paleontologists. That's a really lovely thing to do. If you do want to find out more about fossil exploration, where to get fossils, we have recommended suppliers. We use Mr. Wood's fossils, and we also use GeoEd as well. Those are our recommended fossil suppliers. You can do lots of craft work around dinosaurs, dinosaur finger painting, dinosaur mask making. You can also get, and I'm afraid I don't have an example to show you, but you can get augmented reality cards, dinosaur cards, where you basically get a pack of cards. It's almost like Top Trumps. It's got lots of information about dinosaurs on, but you also download an app to a phone or a tablet. And if you scan the card, the dinosaur appears in 4D on the tablet, and you can make it move around. You can make it raw, gives you loads of information. You can see a sort of skeleton version of it as well. That's a really cool thing. So that's an augmented reality dinosaur cards. There's loads of ways that you can get enhance your storytelling. Now, we'll just skip forward a little bit because we're starting to come towards the end of this CLPL session. But before we close, I do have a final thought for you. And that is a small note on tackling unconscious bias and stereotyping in stories and in our practice. It's a really key priority in science education and in educational practice more broadly. We know that stereotypes can creep into children's perceptions at a very early age. So please be mindful of when telling stories or referring to examples of scientists or creatives that you are conveying that everyone can be a scientist. We want everyone to grow up thinking that science is for them and having a passion where they can go into archaeology or into paleontology or whatever branch of STEM their passion leads them to. It is for everyone. And that brings us to an end of this first of our series of CLPL sessions. Thank you so much for joining us today. I really hope it's been useful, and I've really enjoyed bringing it to you today. I would like to give once again a really huge thank you to Dr. Katie Strang for joining us in this session. Hopefully, we will see you for the next in our series of CLPL sessions, which will take place on the 23rd of November. And it's based around the ocean literacy and creating your own story. You can sign up to that just the same way that you signed up to this one. We are also going to send out feedback forms. We really appreciate your feedback as we hope and look towards making these CLPL sessions the best they can possibly be. So I will send those out to you very, very soon. Thank you in advance for filling those in. We did have a question for Katie that came in a little early on. So the question for Katie was, where is a good website to get the paleogeographical reconstructions? Do you have an answer for that one for us, Katie?
Yes. It's called Scotties.
Can you spell that out for me?
Yeah. So if you Google SCOT
Yeah.
ESE,
Yep.
and then maps, it should bring you to the Paleo Map project.
Right.
And you can download it for all the different time periods.
Thank you so much. I don't know if you could hear that, but Katie says if you Google Scotese, SCOTESE, and go on the maps, that will then take you to that relevant section. So that was something that that Katie picked up on before, and I think it was another Katie that asked that question. So I hope that has answered that question. Folks, thank you so much. I will leave my the chat open for a little bit. I will close the camera down. I will turn off my microphone. But it has been a pleasure to be here with you. I hope to see you again for another CLPL session. My name is Joe. Take care. Have a lovely Wednesday evening.